So there we go. It's hold, sell, or trade on the Bassgod Live. And this is episode 2. I did episode 1 last week, and it was a wide variety of things. As you can see in this picture, what I've actually got is some of the items that I'm going to be showing you tonight. Those are the GI Joes in the plastic bags. But the picture to the left, that's from my table at the Arizona Toy Con. At the Arizona Toy Con, I was selling my vintage AT-AT. Well, you can't say vintage, right? Because there's vintage collection. My original AT-AT. How about that? Original AT-AT, Kenner AT-AT. I had my Transformers, the city Transformers like Metroplex and Trypticon. And then I had my Hydrofoil, my Cobra Hydrofoil. And then there were some figures there, like I had Zartan, Zorana, Zartan's brother, Hawk, and then the Iron Grenadiers. And you can't see it in this picture, but I also had my Steel Brigade figure. I sold all of those things, by the way. I also there's a little tank there. You can see it's a little Shogun Warrior tank. And I sold that as well. That was actually from my brother's collection. But on hold, sell, or trade, the idea here is pretty straightforward. I was inspired a little bit by a YouTuber known as Reserved Investments. And he talks about antiques, collectibles, and comparing them to other investments like stocks, like mutual funds, like real estate, all that kind of stuff. And I like that he does that. And I thought maybe I could do something with that. I've been dabbling in the stock market for quite a while. I have a portfolio of mutual funds myself. And anytime you look at a stock, there will be a recommendation from various organizations say, hold, sell, or buy, right? Well, I'm not here to buy. All right. So I thought I will hold, sell, or trade. And I would like to get your recommendations and also your ideas about prices and things like that. So if you don't catch the live show, please comment, in the rebroadcast, in the rerun, if you want, whatever you want to call it. And let me know what you think. Should I hold, sell, or trade these items that are from my personal collection? And let's be honest, with the economy the way that it is, a lot of us are selling right now. And a lot of us are also looking, is this the right time to sell, right? And it's the collectors out there that know that, the people that have been doing this for a while. In all honesty, I've been out of the game for quite a bit. This is stuff from like my childhood. The only thing I'm actively collecting right now is the Kenner Marvel Legends figures. I do like those a lot. And I already have a fairly substantial collection of them. I kind of stopped again because the economy and because of everything that's going on. I'm trying to save money. But I at this point I am looking to liquidate. But I don't want to liquidate stuff that maybe I should be holding on to. And hence the hold, sell, or trade. All right. So I'm going to start out with some Cobra figures. All right. So incidentally, all of these figures I considered taking with me to the Arizona Toy Con, and I decided not to because right now I feel like a bit of an emotional attachment to them. But with the exception of maybe one figure here, I would sell them for the right price, So one of my first figures here, it's the Bat figure. Let me get the light back on. This is the Bat figure, the Cobra, army builder. Now, the first thing you might notice is that his control panel on his chest appears to be missing. It is not missing, actually. It just fell off. And I have thought about the possibility of like restoring this figure. How well you can see that. You can see it right there. So the panel is there. It just fell off of his chest. He is also missing one of his attachments, which I believe is the flamethrower. It's hard to see, but and I don't want to take these things out of the. I'm trying to handle them very lightly. When I was at the Arizona Toy Show, I kept telling people there's basically two kinds of 80s GI Joe figures. Those where the rubber band has broken, and those where the rubber band will break. And it's funny, when I found these figures, which had been basically sitting in a box, so many of them randomly were broken. In fact, I've got a broken figure to show you here. And one of my main concerns is, as I'm doing this, is that I will break one of these figures right in front of you because they are so brittle with the rubber band. So I've got the Bat. Like I said, he is missing, I believe, the flamethrower attachment. but he has all of his other attachments, and he does actually have the control panel, the chest piece for the control panel. It's just that it fell off. So that's my first item that I got for hold, sell, or trade. And again, I appreciate comments about what you think the value of it is. And if you think this is the time to start liquidating 80s G.I. Joe, or specifically these specific figures, are they overvalued right now? Because that's when you want to sell. You want to sell when the item is, in your mind, reaching its peak value. You don't want to buy something like that when it's at its peak value. You want to buy, items when they're depressed, right? And conversely, if you're going to sell, you don't want to sell when the market is down. This is Big Boa. By the way, it's going to be interesting to see if I remember everybody's names. It's been a while since I've read the comics or watched the TV show. But this is Big Boa. Trying to get the light just right so you can see it a little bit better. He is complete as far as I remember. He's got the boxing gloves, and he has his little, his little, the stand is there. Almost looks like a little shield or something like that. And you can see the punching bag is there. I've always really liked this figure. I do know a little bit about the history of this figure. In fact, I have the comic book. I believe it's G.I. Joe Classifieds, where they have the profiles of all these different characters. And Big Boa, of course, was meant to fight Rocky Balboa. For people that don't know, there was an agreement where Sylvester Stallone was going to license the Rocky Balboa character to G.I. Joe, much like Sergeant Slaughter licensed his character. In fact, I have another example of that, of a real person that licensed their character to G.I. Joe. And Stallone apparently was going to do that. Now, if you're familiar with the G.I. Joe Classifieds comic book, they do not use the likeness of Sylvester Stallone. I've seen mock-ups for the card that Rocky Balboa was supposed to come in. And I'll tell you this. There's a kind of an urban legend out there that the Rocky Balboa figure does exist, that it was out there, and that they were recalled and destroyed. And I think a lot of people, they saw this figure and they assumed it was Rocky Balboa. But I had a friend at that time that absolutely insisted he saw the Rocky Balboa figure at a toy store. And I've always wondered, because I've never heard anybody really get into that, about whether there's a possibility that was true, that they actually did release some of these figures. Because apparently what happened was Stallone decided, he was going to do the Rambo cartoon, and they made their own figures for the Rambo cartoon. And that's my understanding of why the Rocky Balboa character never came out in G.I. Joe. But this was basically supposed to be the guy that he fought, and he's supposed to be a trainer for Cobra. I always thought he was really cool, and I always thought it was nice that they came out with this figure, even though, things didn't quite work out. This is my Destro. See if you can get the angle there. You can see that he has his backpack. I have his gun in his backpack. That's one thing I always remember. I remember other kids doing the same thing to not lose his gun. They'd put his little gun in his backpack. He does have his gun, but it's in the backpack. It's not out for display. He's really loose. This is one that I feel like could easily just break right now before your eyes. So I have to be kind of really careful with him. He's super, super loose. I believe that there's different issues, reissues of him. Because as I remember, I didn't have any first wave G.I. Joes really. The only first wave G.I. Joe I remember having was I had the Cobra tank. Because I remember that being an issue for me trying to find the older G.I. Joe figures because I didn't have any. So I feel like this was a reissue where they they issued him later with another card back. I don't know if he's wave 1 or 2 or whatever. I kind of wonder how you can determine that, if people know how to determine that. But I get really iffy about handling him right now because he's not in the greatest of shape. And then I've got one of my favorite figures, which is the Cobra Frogman, which I think he actually has a different name. But I love this figure. I've always loved this figure. I wish I had more of them because they're a great army builder. And he is complete. You can kind of see he does have his flippers. You can see that he does have his flippers, and he does have his I call it his jetpack, even though it's probably supposed to be like his breathing apparatus. When I used to play with these, I remember my friend and I, we would actually take these off and put them on other characters and use them as a jetpack. Because they're supposed to be, I think, kind of like little thrusters. But he also does have his breathing apparatus. I think that gets lost all the time. So he's very complete. I think this is a very desirable figure in my mind because it's just a cool looking figure. And trying to get some of that glare away. Let me try a different setting on my my lighting here. See if that helps out a little bit. Let's try that one. So yeah, I know there's a lot of glare. So if I kind of put them away from the light is over here, but I want people to be able to see this. And I think he's in pretty darn good condition. So again, hold, sell, or trade. Now transitioning seems like the perfect transition is Storm Shadow, because for some people Storm Shadow is a good guy and some he's a bad guy. Now he is not, this Storm Shadow is obviously the original. This is, and the one that I probably have the most affinity for is the original. He is complete as far as like, you know, you can see the he's got the full torso, the legs, and you know, the waist area. His accessories are not complete. He does have his nunchucks. It's hard to see, but you can kind of see, like, I stuck his nunchucks in the case, like I think most kids did. The bow is still there, but it's broken. But it's complete, but it's broken. Like the bow, I think, always broke. But he's missing his swords. His swords are apparently lost, which really sucks because you would think the thing that would be lost actually is the nunchucks or the bow, right? That's what I would think, because they can come off real easy. And but you know, and you would think that the swords would be okay because they have the nice holders, and as long as you have the backpack, you'll probably have the swords. But no, somehow I lost the swords. I don't know how I did that, but I did. So, but this is definitely one that have some emotional attachment to. He's probably pretty popular, I would imagine. And one of the things I'm actually thinking about doing with some of these broken ones is restoring them, because these are some of the figures that I might hold onto. This is the newer Cobra Commander, I call him. I remember the story arc in the comic books was so cool with this character. And huge spoiler alert, but heck, I'll even put the warning up. I've got the warning. Huge spoiler alert, but they killed him. They killed Cobra Commander in the comic book, and I couldn't believe it. It was such an incredible story, and I was just so angry because they made, in the comic book, this version of Cobra Commander was awesome, in my opinion. I really liked him, and he is complete. He's got the backpack, he's got the gun, very unique gun, and he's got the little, you know, that you can see the little hose attachment. But yeah, I loved this character in the comic book. In the cartoon, it was kind of stupid. The way they did in the cartoon, I thought was kind of stupid. But I really enjoyed his portrayal in the comic book, and I was pissed when they killed him. I was pissed. But yeah, so we got Cobra Commander. I just call him the new Cobra Commander. There's like the original Cobra Commander, the hooded Cobra Commander. This is the new one. I know there's other versions of Cobra Commander today, but you know, I don't get into that stuff. This is stuff. This is the real stuff as far as I'm concerned. And then speaking of Storm Shadow, we had Storm Shadow earlier. This is the newer Storm Shadow, which incidentally, I remember my old co-host Dave Beatty. I think he told me that he preferred this one. He preferred the new Storm Shadow. I still have an affinity for the original one, and I don't remember if this was supposed to be like the good Storm Shadow too, because I know in the comic books they made Storm Shadow basically into like a good guy. I remember that the story arc in the comic books was really good for Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. And I'm trying to remember if this one, if they said he was actually a GI Joe or if he was still Cobra, because I don't see a Cobra symbol on him, whereas the original one obviously does have the Cobra symbol on him. So as far as I know, he's complete, because I don't think he came with a lot. You know, he's got the red sword and the backpack. I always thought this backpack was really cheesy. I love the backpack for the original way better. But the interesting thing is the swords are missing, whereas this guy still has his sword. So I guess this backpack actually did his job better than the one that I like. And he does have his bow. And I believe that's all he came with. If anybody, oh no, he's also got his little claw thing, which is hard to see. I actually didn't even see it, and it's really hard even for me to see. You can kind of see. Let's see if I can get the angle just right. I'm trying not to manipulate these figures. They're just, the waistbands are not good, and the less that I have to restore these things, if I do decide to sell them, the better. But yeah, you can kind of see the claw thing right there. There you go. That's the other weapon. So I think he's complete as far as like, complete off card. But again, I'll call him new Storm Shadow, buy, trade, or sell. And of course, you'd have to talk about Snake Eyes with him. This is, of course, is what I would call the Mark II Snake Eyes, the second Snake Eyes. He does have his backpack. He does have the sword in the backpack. He does have his Uzi. The Uzi is there. Trying to get that angle so you can see him a little bit better. You can also see he's really loose. He's like almost falling over. He's so loose. He is missing the dog. He's missing his wolf, which I almost wonder if my kids found that because they would have liked it, and it's just here somewhere, but I don't know. So he's not complete, but he's Snake Eyes, and of course Snake Eyes is really popular. Unlike Storm Shadow, I do think I like this version of Snake Eyes better than the original. I never had the original. I do like him, but I feel like this version's better. And ironically, I think the dog, the wolf, really makes it, because I remember that scene in the first G.I. Joe cartoon where he finds the wolf, right? Where the wolf helps him, where Snake Eyes has been like irradiated or whatever. Really great scene. And I always thought it was cool that they incorporated the wolf as a character later. And of course, Snake Eyes kind of transcends both the comics and the cartoon, and the fact that, he's pretty awesome in both. He's just one of those characters, so mysterious. I love the fact you never see his face. I love the fact that he doesn't talk. It just shows how writing can make a character compelling, where you don't have to even worry about performance, right? Because he's such a great character and he never talks. You never see his face. And then, of course, what do they do with the Snake Eyes movie? He talks and they show his face. That's just, can't believe they would do something so stupid. I also have Jinx. She kind of feels like she's almost part of the set with, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. Like, I think if I was to sell the newer Storm Shadow, maybe I would sell him with Jinx and possibly the Snake Eyes. I don't know. It's tough. Some of the stuff is emotional. I believe she's complete. She actually has her two swords. Interestingly enough, one of them is actually was still in the backpack, but the other one I found loose somewhere else. And she does have her little I don't even know what you call it, her little spear weapon. I don't. That's not like a real martial art weapon that I'm familiar with. I did take martial arts, but her sort of two-handed spear weapon. And so as far as I know, she's complete. She's got everything. And I don't know what people think about Jinx. Jinx was kind of an interesting character to me. She's interesting, at least in the movie. I think she kind of stupid, but in the comic book, she's kind of an interesting character. I was talking about, characters that were based on real people. Well, I've got one, the refrigerator, which I believe this was a mail-in. I believe this was not, I think there was a carded version, but I believe my version is the mail-in. I actually used to have Sergeant Slaughter, the version that came with his tank, and I believe I sold that a long time ago. But I still have Refrigerator Perry, and he has his really crazy, weird weapon. I remember always thinking how weird this was. And if you don't know what that is, it's just a football like on a chain. And he's supposed to like hit people with this football, right? But I remember when this came out, and as far as I remember, this is the mail away version. I could be wrong. I might have bought this in the store, because I think there was a store version as well that you could get on card. So I'm not sure. That would be something I'd be interested too, is to know, how do you determine whether it's mail order or if it was on the card? And then, is there a difference in price? Is there a difference in what people are looking for these days? Would they rather have the mail order, or they rather have the one that came on the card? Those are things that I would be interested in knowing. So, yep, and he's complete as far as I remember. He didn't come with any other accessories, but I got Refrigerator Perry G.I. Joe. Kind of makes me wish I still have my Sergeant Slaughter, you know? So, but I don't. And then this is the one that's really kind of an emotional attachment to me, and he's not in great shape. This is Shipwreck. And it's funny. I want to point out something. If anybody has been in the Navy, which I was in the Navy Reserve, okay, what rank is he? Right? And yeah, I know what rank he is, okay? Clearly, he's got 2 stripes there, all right? He is a petty officer second class. Well, guess who else was a petty officer second class in the Navy? That would be me. The funny thing is, his file card, if you look at his file card, it says he's he's a chief. He's actually a chief petty officer, not a petty officer second class. But clearly, his rank says that. So I don't think I would ever give this up just because, hey, that's what I was in the Navy. He's wearing his dungarees, which I wore dungarees. Now, when I was in the Navy Reserve, we couldn't wear the sailor cap, also known as the Dixie cup. We couldn't wear that with this uniform. That was more of a World War II thing. We wore these like baseball caps with that uniform with the dungarees. But I'm kind of sad they don't have the dungaree uniform. That's another thing, is they got rid of it in the Navy, and this has such an association with World War II. And in World War II, they did wear the sailor hats, the Dixie cups, with this uniform. The only accessory he has is the grappling hook. You can kind of see it there. He does have the grappling hook. It's wrapped around his arm. That's why it probably didn't get lost. He doesn't have his gun, which his gun was so unique. And of course, he doesn't have his parrot. And then, as is the case with most of these, I don't think you'd be able to see it, but let's see if you can kind of see the waist area. I don't think I can get the angle. I can see it, here. The hook is broken off because he had a hook where you could put his grappling hook onto and wrap it around and hopefully not get it lost. And his is broken. I remember when it broke. I kept the piece, but apparently that over years and time has disappeared, because I actually had the intention of taking that little plastic piece, where the hook goes around, and gluing it back on or something like that. I actually had the intention of doing that. Hey, Jamil Phillips says, that's so cool. I appreciate that, Jamil. Are you a 80s GI Joe collector? Do you have any insight? Again, this segment, I call it hold, sell, or trade, and I'm looking for recommendations, what people think is going on with the toy market right now, if they think that it's a good time to sell these items or not. So that's pretty much it for my GI Joe figures that I wanted to show tonight.